Happy Independence Day, Nigeria. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the Independence Day special broadcast of TVC News and TVC Breakfast. I'm Veronica Dan Ikboy. Joining me this morning is Ibrahim Shita. Ibrahim.
Veronica.
Happy Independence.
Happy Independence. Compliments of the season.
Compliments of the season. It's a season. It's a day.
Well, it's a season as well because, we're celebrating Nigeria. It's seasonal.
It's
so,
seasonal.
yeah, it comes in, every year.
That's interesting. That's what
makes it seasonal.
Anyway, so much to talk about when we're talking about Nigeria's independence. We've been hearing comments here and there about how far we have come as a country, if we are truly independent, if we are living the dreams of our founding fathers.
That's right.
If we're here, just questions here and there, the challenges we have faced, if this day is anything to, if there's something to celebrate. And there are those who think that, of course, there's something to celebrate when you look at the challenges we have had to surmount over the years. Some countries did not survive it, but over the years we've been able to, still hold the fabrics of our country together. United, we stand. Divided, we are not.
We aren't going to fall. Yeah, that's the beautiful thing. It's also good to experience today. 64th Independence Nigeria coinciding with the 25th, year of unbroken democracy. And that's a beautiful thing. Even though we have our challenges, there is no country you go to in this world that you won't find one challenge or the other. It might just be much more than the one we're having in Nigeria. And if you compare Nigeria vis-a-vis other countries, you see that Nigeria is even doing better, much more than other countries. We don't want to start mentioning names of other countries.
You just have to look at least one or two.
You can compare us to Somalia, you can compare us to Uganda, you can compare us to even some countries like Nicaragua, Venezuela, so many other countries, even Lebanon, apart from the crisis they're facing.
But there are those who will say, why not compare us with the US?
No, that's what I'm saying. So if you look, no, the thing is, we have to look back, and then we also have to look forward. We have to look into the future, and that's one of the things we'll be talking about. So when we know that, when we realize that we are going to attain certain, milestone, we just have to look at where we're coming from. So, and then you benchmark yourself. That's why they say, count your blessings.
So today is a day to count our blessings. Right. No matter what we've been through, at least we are still together here. And so it's a thing to celebrate.
Right.
Anyway, on October the 1st, 1960, Nigeria gained independence, marking the beginning of a new era. This day marks a great milestone in the history of Nigeria. 64 years since independence, we still remember the brave men and women who fought for Nigeria's freedom. Join us as we reflect on our journey, celebrate our achievements, and look forward to a brighter future. And that's what it is that we are looking forward to. There's a lot to look forward to and hope for as the years and days roll by. We'll quickly go on a break. When we return, we'll continue the conversation here. Stay with us. All right, thank you for staying with us. It's our special coverage of the Independence Day celebration. And as usual, we have our correspondents across the country, especially in Abuja, where we will be following up developments with regards to the celebration. Although the government has said that it is a low-key celebration, but every activity are things that we will follow through today. And so you can keep tabs with us for developments of how this day will go. Of course, at 7 a.m., the president will be given a speech addressing the country, and that will also form part of our conversation this morning. Ibrahim, a lot to look forward to with regards to the president's speech this morning. And Nigerians are also waiting with bated breath as regards what issues he will address.
So many issues, especially...
You want to preempt the president?
Definitely, not preempting the president, but certainly you know that he's going to speak to some certain issues, especially the aftermath of his, announcement of the removal of fuel subsidy, even though it was removed before his, swearing in. But then it happened to be that when he announced it, everyone, clicked or just glues this, this. I don't want to use the word stigma. I just want to use the phenomenon.
It's like when you sneeze and everywhere catches.
Yes, and I say it was the president that removed the fuel subsidy. Okay, fine, we agree that he didn't remove the subsidy, fuel subsidy, but then there were no proper plans, to implement and then to also cushion the effect and all of that. But others will say, no, that's not true. There's so many interventions that have been coming in, economic reforms, the CNG, buses that are, already coming in, the palliatives, the student loans, just mention it. It's so many things, even infrastructure development we are beginning to see. And then we are also recording high figures, in the foreign direct investments. We are not saving much money, but we are earning more money. But others are now asking, okay, so fine, where is that money on my table?
I needed you to land so that we will now ask those
everything
questions.
should not land in your tummy, because some might be poisonous if it's too much. Although, it's a time to reflect, it's a time to, to do a lot of introspection and ask ourselves a lot of questions. Even individually, where I was yesterday, is it the same place I am today? It might be slow growth. For some, it could just be leap. But others, it might be some sort of retrogression. But the fact that we are still alive, it shows that, we still have hopes, because we are never on the same spot since we assumed this administration, this current, democratic dispensation of the Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration. Right,
and talking about the CNG buses, we saw that there was a distribution some days ago, I think 2-3 days ago, to some members of the society, talking about the NLC, that's Nigeria Labour Congress, the TUC, the Trade Union Congress, as well as the National Association of Nigerian Students. They have gotten that, and so will experience what it is like. The government has
even some commercial buses.
Some commercial buses and tricycles have also been converted, and the government is ensuring that distribution across the country, and we are hoping that much more will be released. The conversion kits have conversion locations across the country. Some places have been designated as conversion centers, and so Nigerians can take advantage of that. It's just that the matter of the cost for conversion is what a lot of persons are still talking about. But government has come out to say that it's cheaper alternative.
Absolutely.
And so Nigerians should embrace it. And it's like a lot of Nigerians are beginning to look in that direction.
That's right.
As much as possible, most Nigerians want to cut down on the cost of whatever it is that they need to do as much as possible, so that they can have more to address other issues across their scale of needs as it is. So the other matter that I'm looking forward to, that might be part of the conversation, is the matter of security. How we have been able to address that over the years, and what we're planning to do in the coming days. But we need to quickly go on a break. When we return, we'll definitely continue our conversation in the studio. Stay with us. Beautiful song by Fumi Adams. It brings back memories. I could at least muster some words.
That's right. That's right.
Nigeria. But then it is good to
Go ahead. Go ahead.
You want me to sing? No, now. We have limited time. Don't worry. I'll sing it for you after now.
After now.
Anyway, but it's so good to see the journey so far from our founding fathers up until now. It's good to, juggle our memories sometimes to also know who our leaders were so far and how far we have come. But then we have guests that will be speaking with us on our journey so far and what they make of Nigeria being 64 years today. And so joining us in the studio, we have social commentator, publisher, The Factor magazine, Japhet Odesonya. Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy Independence Day.
Happy Independence.
It's good to have you.
Happy Independence, Ibrahim.
Happy Independence.
And also via Zoom from the United States of America is convener, Social Rehabilitation, Grace and Support Initiative, Dr. Oludare Marindati. Good morning. Happy Independence Day, even though you're not in Nigeria. But
yeah, good morning and happy Independence Day. And yes, I may not be in Nigeria, but nothing says Nigeria more than a Yoruba boy wearing an Hausa Ula hat on an Igbo Isiagu top. So yes,
that speaks,
and a bit to compliment.
Okay, that speaks to the matter of our unity. How it is that we can still, represent whatever we stand for in terms of unity in our dress sense. It's not just about what we talk about, our conversation and all of it, but showing that we have some level of solidarity. When we're talking about unity, we can dress to replicate that, and that is what you are doing. So from that point of view, talk to us about Nigeria at 64. All right, okay. Before I come to you, all right, we need to quickly take a vox pop of how Nigerians are looking at Nigeria at 64, what they think of our journey so far.
We go back to the drawing board. Where are we coming from? What are we doing right now? So as to know the way forward for our country. We need to be efficient, diligent. We need to be hardworking in all our dealings. Then we need to be patriotic. When we are patriotic, we believe that this thing is mine, this thing is for another person. I should not take another person something and join it with my own.
I just want the president to really look into it, because for them to rule us, they are for the people. So they should make things easy for the poor masses, so that at least we are still developing and we hope we'll get better.
We, the citizens of Nigeria, still wish that the government can do so many things concerning the economy, the price of things.
I just need to calm everybody in the country. So let's continue praying for the country as a whole, that God should bless Nigeria. As we normally pray for America, we normally pray for England, we should continue praying for Nigeria as well.
With the whole scenario now, I think you just have to think outside the box, or, do things extraordinary before you can, strive or even survive in this whole thing.
The fuel subsidy that has that is going on as well, it's a good, it's a good proposal. But at the end of the day, we need to do more in making sure that the fuel prices should come down.
All we need to do is just to support the Mr. President, Mr. Governor of Lagos with prayers. So we support them because they are leaders, and Quran says that we should always support our leaders.
To move Nigeria forward, it needs a bold way, bold manner to handle Nigeria, and this is the normal way. So Nigeria is moving forward, and by the grace of God, everything is going to be better. With this kind of policy putting in by this present president, Nigeria will be great again.
Divergent views from a cross-section of Nigerians there with regards to our journey so far. So let me come back to you now, Dr. Marindati on what you make of our journey so far at 64, how some say we are still developing, and the question is, are we developing in the right manner or in the right direction?
Thank you. You know, the story of Nigeria is, well, I'll say something that I sadly had to learn by myself because when I was in secondary school, there was no history. But, you know, we started out with a lot of promise. We definitely subsequently, between the generations, fell short of that promise. Now, we are just 64 year old as a country, you know, compared to a young country, a relatively young country like the United States that will be 250 in 2 years' time. You know, so Nigeria still has a lot of room to grow. Definitely, for a very long period of time, we had you know, some policies that had failed to improve the lives of the people, and you know, economic reforms is that we are going through right now is expected to over time do that. You know, but when we talk about something like our union, it's you know, nobody would have thought maybe in the eve of 1966, 67 that Nigeria will still be a country today because of all what we have gone through. And I feel like, you know, part of the way by which we can foster our unity and make our country progress is by educating each other about ourselves, re-emphasizing our culture, our community, our languages, and trying to, you know, use our own local currency, which is who we are, to develop our country and also improve, you know, our way of life. You know, a lot of people, you know, when you went on the streets to talk to them, spoke about what the country can do for them. You know, JFK was popularly known to have said that ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. When you look at Nigeria right now, we have some economic crisis. We have the value of the naira being so weak, and everybody is looking at the president. But you know, the truth is that the president by himself cannot fix the exchange rate. It is the Nigerian people that can, you know, work hard, improve their productivity, and fix the exchange rate when they start, you know, being productive.
All right.
Now, the president has to put things in place, but we all need to come together and, you know, work as one country to move the country forward.
Okay, let's come back to the studio now, where we have social commentator, publisher, The Factor magazine, Japhet Odesanya. Japhet, talk to us what 64-year means of independence means to you. When you look at the past presidents and how far we have come, what comes to mind, really?
A lot. Thank you. A lot comes to mind. You look at the figure itself, 64, it's a lot. It's big, you know. And then when you look at the, you know, just make Nigeria, turn it to like a human person, human being. One would expect that at 64, it's an old age setting in, you know. We've been through a lot. I'd say Nigeria, who had its best time even before independence. The best of our time was during the colonial, you know, era.
Really?
Yes, and I have my instances. Look at the McPherson-Lee. Look at 1954 to 1960. That was pre-independence. Then you look at the setting of governance and the institutions of government, then you will realize that we had our best times when government was competitive, government was people-centric.
That's right.
You know, there was national constitution, and there were constitutions for the regions. So if
Mr.
at the
Japhet,
moment...
Sorry to butt in your thoughts. I know we are still going to explore this, you know, coming from, you know, where Nigeria actually started from and where we're going. But I want you to quickly speak to, because in very few minutes to come, the president will be, you know, having a national broadcast. So what are your expectations of what the president might likely touch on?
Yes, I think you have mentioned some of them earlier, Ibrahim.
But from your perspective.
Yes, I will expect that. We hear a message of hope, you know, Mr. President talking about his feelings, expressing empathy about the excruciating moment, you know, because of the fundamental, you know, economic policies for reform that we just have to go through. I will expect that he will come to us again to say, please bear with us.
Okay.
Let's exercise more patience.
All right.
We're going to get it better.
Quickly.
The salary will be addressed. The CNG stuff.
Okay. Okay.
You know,
Let's quickly get Dr. Marion Dotti's perspective quickly before we move over to join that speech. Quickly, what's your expectations are of the speech?
The president, yes, thank you. You know, the president ran on renewed hope and keep the fire of that hope burning. He needs to keep hope alive. You know, the Yoruba people say that if people live far, that is, delayed hope can make the heart go sickened. So, you know, we need to let him, we have to definitely talk about it's going to be a somber celebration. We have to acknowledge that we've made strides, but we also have to understand that we are, you know, acknowledge the people's pain and talk about the ways by which he is actually trying to fix it.
Okay.
And so that people can actually see some bit of light at the end of the tunnel.
All right. We have to quickly move over now to join that speech because it's almost time. Of course, Nigerians are waiting with bated breath, like we mentioned earlier, to hear what the president had to say. And so we'll go on the break. When we return at the top of the hour, where it will be time for the president to speak to Nigerians. Stay with us. That was the president's message to Nigerians, and he highlighted several crucial issues which we will be dissecting absolutely here with our guests. But just a recap of some of the things he talked about. He assured Nigerians that their voices are heard and that the government is finding sustainable solutions, and so pleaded for patience that for the reforms that are being implemented as much as possible, saying that they might be taking time, so Nigerians need to be patient with his government. He talked about the fact that our founding fathers chose democracy, and which, when we look back and see now, is a beacon of hope, and that we have, to an extent, succeeded in implementing the dreams of our fathers. And he touched on the fact that we should never lose sight of how far we have come. Although we have faced many crises, but we have been able to overcome. His administration took over 16 months ago, and several issues he touched on that he said his administration have addressed and are still addressing. The matter of security, he says, they're winning the war on terror and are looking forward to ending kidnapping for ransom, and also the fact that peace has been restored to hundreds of communities, especially in the northeast. Some persons have been returned home, but government is ensuring that there is still peace, so farmers can return to farm and there can be increase in food production. And he talked about government response to natural disasters. We recall what happened in Borno, for instance, and how the fact that the Vice President, Kashim Shettima, visited Borno, and that the government has now given approval for a disaster relief fund to respond faster to such kinds of emergencies. And when he touched on the matter of economy, he said Nigeria's economy is under reform to serve us better, and to also correct the misalignment that has been in the economy for many years now. He also talked about the matter of the debt, that the inherited forex backlog of $7 billion have been cleared. The Ways and Means debt of over 30 billion naira has also been cleared, and so debt service ratio has been reduced from 97% to 68%. And now he touched on the matter of the central concern of a majority of Nigerians, which is the matter of a high cost of living, which is shared by many. He says that the government is implementing many measures to reduce the cost of living, and commended The governors of Kebbi, Niger, Jigawa, Kwara, and some Southwest governors that have embraced the agricultural production program of this administration to address the matter of food security and also cutting down on the cost of living. And then he touched on the CNG, talked about the fact that the transition program is on course. He also spoke to the matter of unity and how it's important to foster national unity in the country, that our country can only thrive when there is peace. He touched on youth, the youth. He says we cannot design a future that belongs to them without making them the architect. And so he said that a National Youth Conference, a platform to address the diverse challenges of and opportunities confronting the youth, will be set up, and it's going to be a 30-day confab for them to develop solutions on issues bordering on education, employment, innovation, security, social justice, as many issues that affect them. And then he gave the modalities for the selection process. He touched on the fact that the NEL Fund, that's the Nigeria Education Loan Fund, has also been established, and other programs that have been put in place to address issues that concern the youth. And then he mentioned the matter of national honors, those that will have received the national honor, especially the President of the Senate, and also the Speaker of the House of Representatives and some other persons that have received honors. And he said that more names will be mentioned later on. And then he said that better days are ahead, and he urged Nigerians to believe on the administration's promise to deliver perhaps on good governance and every other thing. This is just a summary of the speech the president made. We still have here with us in the studio Japhet Odesanya. We have also via Zoom Dr. Oludare Marindoti, our guest, to speak on the speech of the president. You were mentioning earlier on what your expectations are, and it seems the president have addressed them. What do you think?
Yeah, that's one very clear thing. You can't take that away from Asiwaju Tinubu. When he speaks in your language. It speaks and reflects realities of the moment. You can't take that away from him. That the cost of living is high. That the moment is tough. He is aware. And he has given us steps that have been taken by his administration. I think those are commendable. I must commend your thorough summary too. That was perspicacious. And I like that. Let's talk about the youth and all that. You will expect that things will be, at this stage, tough, given, our antecedent as a nation. Out of the 64 years that we're talking about, I think we've just had only 34 of democracy. 30 shattered by the military, interregnum, interjunctions, unnecessary interventions. Even so ugly at a point, because of frustrations, Nigeria needed to, as democratic people, ushered in military at some point. Then when they saw that you can never compare freedom to being caged, they had to say, Buhari, you have to go. Collaborating with another military to chase a military. Then even at that point, Babangida showed us Pepe. So at this point, I will want to appeal always, again, for patience. We cannot throw away democratic culture and principles because of our haste to have a better standard. It will take time. It will take time. 16 months, fine. The debt burden that Mr. President mentioned about, I think there is more to do in the area of information dissemination. If you have been able to pay 30-something billions, I remember, this is not funny. When Shagari had 5.5 billion from the military administration in 1979, and it rose to $8.2 billion in 1984. By the time the military came back, there was nothing left in the coffer. There was nothing left in the coffer. That was the height of corruption by the then democratic institutions. So if you have one now that is trying as much as possible to sustain the foreign debt, maintain the foreign reserves, I had 33 billion, now it is 37. I think that is commendable. However, how does that translate to food on the table of the common man?
That's right.
And that is why we need to look at seriously the banditry, terrorism. I think we have made progress. I needed to travel by road recently, just about 3 days ago.
That's right.
Lagos to Abuja. 4 years earlier, I had done that during Buhari. And when we got to Lokoja, every bus had to stop. You know, what happened? There was serious attacks ahead. And this time around, all through the route, nothing, you know, there were serious checks at every point. I felt some sense of security like never before. To and fro. That is commendable.
Interesting.
And we will need to do more. Right. I am aware of all other gadgets that have been, you know, acquired. But you see, what is said that is most significant is food. An hungry man is an hungry man.
Absolutely. So that is actually where I want to take it from, you know, talking to Dr. Marindotu. I hope he's still on Zoom.
Right. Before you quickly go to Marindotu, you know, there's this issue, I think it was an oversight on my own part, the president standing to address the nation. Ordinarily,
brilliant. Yes.
We would have seen him sit to address, but this time around, he stood.
Yes, I think he has also come to demonstrate fitness. Fitness. You know, we don't do it here like it's done in America. You walk from the Capitol, you know, you walk kilometers on the Independence Day or the day of inauguration. So Mr. President has come to reflect that come, we are fit enough to do the job. I think he's sending a signal.
Right.
And that's is okay for us. He's healthy, nothing wrong with his health, nothing wrong with his mental capacity, standing for almost 35 minutes, you know, to address. I think it's good. And that is the first time. Previously, all he did was, you know, sit down and address us. I noticed that too. Thanks. Thanks
Most past presidents of Nigeria actually, you know, often sit whenever they address the country, you know, in this kind of national broadcast, as we've seen so far. So, Dr. Marindotu, well, I want you to also speak to that, how you saw that. But in the same vein, I know that someone like you has always advocated, you know, bringing up reforms to tackle food prices and all of that, because oftentimes, I remember talking to you, you always mentioned food. So the president commended governors who have embraced agricultural reforms, you know, and then highlighted the importance of mechanized farming with plans to establish a local assembly plant for farming equipment. So the question is, how soon do you expect to see tangible results? Because it looks like Nigerians really can't wait. No one really wants to go to bed, you know, feeling hungry. So how soon do we see this tangible results in food prices, and what role do you think, you know, collaboration can play in ensuring these initiatives succeed?
I'll first talk to the tenor and the temperament that the president brought to the speech. I think, you know, when there was the end bad governance protest, the president also stood while addressing the nation. I guess it is just his own way of showing seriousness and recognizing the fact that the country is in a somber position and he is leading them, you know, from the front. So, you know, when the president spoke about the, you know, the reforms and the food production stimulation initiative, I was pretty excited about it, and I've been following it also. Even in my state, you know, in all local government, the governor has cleared lands and, you know, they are working on it. But this is going to take time because it is going to be incremental. It is not just about food production, but also the value chain of food, so that we don't have all this seasonal shock, tomato Ebola today, rice Lassa fever tomorrow, all these things. We need to still invest in the real infrastructure. So all these things are going to be incremental. And while we might see a little bit of, you know, get a little bit of a breather in a few, maybe like 6 months to 1 year, it will still be a long-term, you know, project. Because when you think about it, if you import tomato to the south from the north, about 65% of it will rot before it gets to the south. The only way you can prevent that is to import the vehicles that can keep the tomatoes cold while you are transporting it through Nigerian sun. Now, before you can get the large volume of vehicles that will come into the country and all, a lot of reforms need to be done in terms of importation of all these kind of vehicles. So, a lot of all these things, even in preservation, building silos and all these things that will make us have strategic food reserves or at different locations all across the country, so that a market shock does not have a direct immediate effect on the prices of food. And no, I was once in a food business in Nigeria, and I can buy onion for 500 today, and that same onion I'll buy it 3,500 tomorrow. So these are things that we need to still invest on. But I was happy that he spoke about the leadership, the history of Nigeria. He spoke about the fact that this might not make any sense to Yaramota that is trying to sell tomato in the market, or Rabiu, who is a bus conductor. But when he spoke about the fiscal policies and the ways they've paid off a lot of the debts, this thing is going to benefit Nigeria on the long term. These things will not make sense, like I said, to the common man on the street, but it is good that he made mention of it. I have just one criticism for the speech, though, which was where he mentioned a lot of the, the honoraries, honor the people that are being honored. I think a lot of people might not receive that very well. They would say they are just honoring their friends, essentially, and they might even say it's an APC thing, because I don't think he mentioned anybody from another party. So these are some things that's one thing that I think I can, criticize. He also mentioned the youth confab, which I think, sounds like a good idea, but we had a confab during Jonathan's era, which was not a youth confab, right? So that was also criticized as being a way for people to just make money and go. So if they want to really truly have a youth confab that will be about people who want to have serious conversation about the problems of Nigeria and the problems facing the youth and how to solve it, then they need to ensure that the monetary motivation is not there, so that it's only serious people who want to get involved in serious conversations that will volunteer to attend this thing. I mean, they might have a per diem, but let it be very, very moderate, that it will not be a way to dole out, millions, so that we can have serious conditions. Because definitely a lot of Nigerian youth, we live in an information age. A lot of people have been in different crimes, and they have ideas that can solve a lot of problems. They can talk about things that are affecting them in their own little enterprise, and now we can fix it. But, we cannot allow corruption to come into that. The president did not also mention anything significant about power, and I think power is very important, because if we want to get out of our economic doldrum, we need to fix power, so that we can climb out and be productive. So that's something that I felt like was also missing in the speech. But by and large, in my own opinion, I think he did well. The CNG initiative, I think, is always going to be a long-term thing. So we shouldn't put too much emphasis on that, because, aside from getting the buses, you also have to get the CNG supply, including the filling stations. I know you don't want to drive from Lagos to Ibadan, and then your CNG finishes, and then you have to drive all the way to Ogun State or come back to Lagos to be able to fill your tank. Those are things that are going to affect the feasibility of it. But I'm happy that they are also working on it, because that is, fixing public transportation is something that will help the economy. And the president has removed subsidy on fuel, but they can still target subsidies on people who are transporting food and people, and so that they can still try and use that to help manage the resources. So these are just some few suggestions, but the president's speech to me by and large was positive. He spoke on majority of the things that I needed to talk about.
Interesting. Just to touch on something you raised with regards to the beneficiaries of the national honors for 2024. The president only mentioned the names of the Senate president and the Speaker of the House of Rep, as well as the Chief Justice of the Federation. He said that a list of beneficiaries will be mentioned later on. And so we cannot conclude that it is members of his party or his friends that are on the list, because we do not have that. These are persons who occupy key positions that he mentioned. So I do not want us to conclude when we haven't seen the list. But you touched on something important that I want to bring to the studio for Japhet to speak on, which is the matter of the confab for youth. he talked about that they are going to have a comfort for youth. And he said that something he mentioned, we cannot design a future that belongs to the youth without them being the architect of it. And so they thought it wise to have this confab. But the concerns raised here by Dr. Marindoti is something that I'm sure a majority of persons are also going to be talking about, how to ensure that persons who are willing to have conversations that will steer the affairs of the youth and bring out something crucial that will help improve, their lives and issues around them will be part of it, and that there is no corruption involved.
I think it's pertinent, so that at the end of the day, we don't just engage in unnecessary jamboree. We all know what the youths want. We know what the needs are. I'm also disturbed by the process of selection.
Okay.
There have been confabs, How do you select who goes to the confab? How does Majid, a organizer, get represented? Will he be part of those you will camp for 30 days? Where will they be? Transcorp? What are they discussing? But the basic thing is, the youths are hungry. They are hungry and they are hungry. We've seen that. How can we mitigate?
Do you think this statement will pacify them to an extent?
It is meant to pacify, but I doubt if it will.
And yes, with the planned protest.
It is meant to pacify, but I doubt if it will. You understand? Because of the consciousness at the moment. The youths, it's an open society now. They will ask questions. You call them Gen Z. Unfortunately, their baking process is not thorough these days. All institutions that should have done that have collapsed. So you have a funny youth. You have a very funny youth. I don't want to use another adjective. So to that extent, they will ask questions so that it does not degenerate into unnecessary antagonism. Again, I think government will do more to bring it down.
How?
To as much as possible local level.
Okay.
Monitor the process of selection. As far as I am concerned, we know the problems of the youth.
Do we?
I am not.
Well, isn't it important to hear from them?
What do you want to hear from them? They are hungry. They need jobs. Create infrastructural engagements. Let's engage in building. Let's engage in engineering, high-tech. Let's turn Nigeria to a hub of
the president actually mentioned the three
manufacturing
program, the
production, construction. You understand? The majority of the youths that are needed are not the types that will be invited. That's the irony.
You need to expatiate on that.
The youths that we really need to touch, that will constitute problem, natural disaster against the status quo, are those that will not be invited.
How so?
Because they are not informed.
Okay.
They do not even have access to this information.
But they will have representatives.
They are not
For instance,
educated.
Let us try to demystify, your worries about this. There is this NURTW. We have youth who are also working in that light. We have some, good boys, just using that euphemism to describe them, if you know what I mean. So some of these people we find on the streets, some guys who always foment trouble during during electioneering season. We have, some of these guys that are being used. So I believe that they have their leaders that they listen to because the politicians know them. And some of them are, to some extent, they are lettered to some extent. They can communicate in simple, expression, in accordance with our lingua franca. Do you not think that there will be an opportunity for the president or whoever will be chairing the committee that is convening this confab for the youth will bring some of these people on board so that they will be well represented?
Get me clearly, Ibrahim. I am not pessimistic. My worry is that what is the ratio of the youth you want to gather to a confab? We have the Nigerian Youth Council. I think there
National
are so
Association
many.
of Nigerian Students.
National Association of Nigerian Students.
And we have youths in different chapters of the states.
It will be upon that basis you will select them. I am saying, how do you select? So the system was just fashion a process, a program that will touch the core. How do you select the artisans? How do you select those that are not educated at all? So that we talk to them in a language. So I think it's a privilege to bring them on board. Will they bring them on board?
So are you saying now that the better option would be to break this conversation down to state and local government level?
Yes.
Where all of these persons can be easily accessed.
And related with.
Yes, and then we can speak in the language they understand.
Beautiful. Because we have serious issue on education, diseducation, misinformation. It's a serious issue.
Right.
Honestly. And you look at an average Nigerian youth, you see disease, you see hopelessness. There are youths as young as 5, some toddlers that you cannot imagine move around roundabouts. See the Almajiris, even here in Lagos that we are. What do we do about them? Let's engage our youths.
That's right.
More productively. We must create jobs, social security. Let an average Nigerian youth have access to money. Just money. As little as 50,000. Credit. We have BVN. We have data now. Let them have access to these resources.
Right.
There will be tension reduced drastically.
Let me take this to Dr. Maridotti because it looks like it's a very, very significant part of the president's speech and then addressing the challenges we're facing in this country. Dr. Maridotti, it's quite interesting, you talking about the youth, and then we have Mr. Japheth also, expressing some concerns about how we can resolve this crisis. But then politicians know how to get to the core of the societies, the grassroots, because during election, they know how to gather them, how to convene them, and how to get their, or drive their information, right into their hearts. Could you talk to us about the strategies that might be adopted in, convening this conference for national youth? So much so that they talk about the issues the president raised regarding education, employment, innovation, which is quite central initiative, in his speech.
We have a generation of a lot of unqualified adults that make up our youth because of the way we grew up in the age of social media. So there are some level of thinking that we have been deprived of over years, which has affected, us in what we turned out to be eventually. But when we talk about the politicians trying to call a national youth confab, I have been a strong advocate of restructuring, and I know Mr. Japheth said something about that in the beginning of this conversation before the speech, whereby we have a diverse population of Nigerian youth. I'm sure, Veronica, right now, if your husband wants to marry a second and third wife, you probably will kick against it, but some youth in the north, they accept it, they embrace it. So, we have different experiences, which I will not be against, everybody coming together, but having all these conversations on a local level and giving people more power and all these things will also help in having an effective youth conversation that will really make meaning, because we cannot have a uniform we cannot embrace a uniform consensus for all the diverse youth of Nigeria. The problems of the youth in Akure might be different from that of the youth in Anambra State, So these are things, but the most important thing that will really ensure that I believe should ensure that only serious people will come out for this conference is if there is no significant financial benefit. If it is something that it is not going to attract you to make you want to leave whatever you are doing to come and join the confab, then we can have people who have serious mind and who are ready to contribute and who have ideas to come and talk about it. We have problems with education, definitely. A lot of Nigerian students are, complaining about the way they are being educated. We have an education system that is funded by the government, but then the lecturers sometimes just keep the students in the college for too long. and teach them things that are not relevant in the labor market. These are things that need to be reformed. May I just mention that also? I feel like the Minister of Technology, Bosuti Janish, needs to rethink his 3MTT strategy in the light of AI, because that has also changed the work demand, and is going to do that more in the future. But these are things that there are some things that we can bring into our secondary school and make, everybody talks about the NEL fund and the tertiary institution, but that is good, but only less than 20% of Nigeria make it through for any form of tertiary education. So this shows us that still the most important form of education that needs the best amount of funding is still the secondary and the primary education. And we need to not, lose sight of that, so that we can raise Nigerian youths and Nigerian students that will not leave secondary school to be WAEC passers, but they will leave secondary school with skills that they can use. I've met a lot of people in the United States that will tell me that I learned plumbing when I was in, university, because our local government had a program for it. Or maybe they just went for like a 9 months after secondary school, and now they are 19-year-olds. They are making money, some even 6 figures, and they are contributing to the economy. But we have a bunch of Nigerian redundant youths that have gone through even the university, but the universities have only wasted their time because they are not employed, because there was nothing that was imparted in them. It is not their fault. They have all the skills, but they were not trained in the right way. And these are things that the Nigerian youth need to talk about, whereby we can have a form of a feedback system on whatever process that the government is trying to put in place. So yes, I will not say the Nigerian, the confab is not a good idea. I think it's a good idea, but I think the vetting process, the most important thing is to remove the financial incentive. Once the financial incentive is removed, then only serious-minded people will be willing to make that sacrifice to contribute to nation building. Now, the confab is not the only thing that needs to have the financial incentive removed, even our politics, right? But at least since we are talking about the the youth conference, I think that is one major suggestion that I will want to put, have the administration consider. Don't make it financially profitable, so that we can only have serious-minded people that will come there and dedicate their 30 days in whatever rotating fashion, and then go through the, the whole confab process. Thanks.
Financially attractive. But let's bring the conversation.
They always say that they should make the National Assembly less attractive.
Okay, so let's quickly touch on this matter because of our time, which is the matter of unity. The president said that fostering national unity, that our country can only thrive where there is peace. And we've seen over the years that it seems the ghost of the Civil War is still present with us, and some other issues. We have seen how that has played out even in our electoral processes and the likes. In the Southeast, I was reading a story, I think last night or early this morning, where some persons were saying that they shouldn't celebrate the independence in the Southeast. And I'm wondering, this matter of understanding the fact that unity is critical to how we progress, how a majority of us is responding to that matter, and how the government is also championing this cause is also critical. Yeah.
Thank you. I think the only way and means to peace is justice. So you have to make justice itself justiciable, rule of law, justiciability of misgovernance, serious sanctions against mismanagement of public funds. That will serve as deterrence for corruption. The particular section of the society that feels we don't need to celebrate because for too long we have been, maltreated in this union, may have their reasons. And I think we still need to continue on the path of reconciliation. There is need for healing.
How do we do that?
Since after the war, we have not done enough. And that is not the fault of the present administration. So we must get that clear. He has inherited huge burden, I think that was what led Mr. President to say, let's go back to Nigeria, we hail thee. Yeah. I think the concept of brotherhood, in that phrase, it's important that we sing it, to attract some patriotism. But more will come from our conduct as government to the populace. I want to have a system. Now we have talked about confab for the youth, but we had sat down. I was a delegate at a point with Baba, Beko, Kuti, and other comrades. We had a mock confab at Ibadan here, saying these are the things we feel we should have in terms of regional arrangements and governance. People came from the east, north, and other. There have been confab, there have been results of confab that have not been implemented.
Okay.
They are kept in the shelves. Now we are having the youth confab. I think we may have to have another confab to reopen it. Abacha came with sovereign national confab idea. We didn't see it.
All right.
Pro-NACO and all of this. So we know the problems. The problem is systemic. The problem is structural. And we must address it from that angle.
Okay.
There can be peace without justice.
All right. Quickly, let's get Dr. Marinduti's perspective in perhaps 60 seconds. What you make of the matter of unity and how it's crucial to our progress as a nation.
Yeah, thanks. Unity comes with understanding one another. If I don't know who you are, I may misjudge you. I may mischaracterize whatever you are doing.
Okay.
So we need to educate ourselves more about who we are. We need to go back to, I've always suggested,
and that's a fine
each other our languages.
Okay, that's a fine place to leave the conversation. We must thank you, social commentator, publisher, The Factor magazine, Japhet Odesanya, for your time, as well as from the United States of America, convener, social rehabilitation and accountability and support, Grace and Support Initiative, Dr. Oludayo Marinduti. Thank you so much for your time on the program. Thank you. Thank you.